The Beatles. Who doesn't love them? The most popular band of all time, the Beatles had a lot of songs in the 8 years they were together, but not all of them were released. Some of them were made, but never saw the light of day. Additionally, some of the early versions of their songs could also have worked as separate songs. So what if there was an album that compiled most of their unreleased music, along with some additional information on the band? What if it was 3 albums? Behold, the Beatles Anthology. As a Beatles fan, I've yet to listen to the anthology, so today we will be changing that by ranking every single song on them, all 141. Now, there are only 3 anthology albums, so be prepared to look at these images all video, but I am changing up the visuals from last ranking. Instead of them looking like this, they'll look like this. Pretty cool. Note that there will inevitably be some rankings on here that you, and even my future self, might disagree with. All of these placements are just my opinion, and if I do change my mind on some of my rankings at a later time, I can't change them by the time this video is released. For every song in the anthology that is an early version of a song they would release later on, they put anthology version at the end of the title. To avoid making this video repetitive, I won't put that after every song title outside of some exceptions, because that would get annoying quickly. So if a song from the anthology has the same name as one of the band's original songs, you can just assume that. When I'm comparing these songs to their released versions, I'll use many different variations of that phrase to avoid sounding repetitive. So here are some synonyms that mean the same as each other that I say to avoid sounding repetitive. Now, one issue about ranking every song from the anthology is that not all of them are actual songs. In Anthology 1, there are these occasional interviews and talking interludes that don't count as actual songs. These pieces will not count for the ranking, but I will list them all off here. Also, some songs have demos or false starts. Usually when these happen in the album, a version soon after will have the full, complete song. Here's a list of every song that has a demo or false start that is too short to be included. Not every demo is excluded from the ranking, though. Every installment that counts as a song will be in the ranking. So for example, say they had a demo of one of their songs and also a live version of it in the anthology. Both would be counted for the list as long as they're both long enough. This does not mean that they have to be linked together on the list, though. With all that said, I think it's time to get into the Beatles Anthology Ranked. Here we begin at number 141. What's the new Mary Jane? It's just noise, that's all it is. It's the Revolution 9 of the anthology. There's not a lot you can really say about this. I'm glad it went unreleased. But if I had to decide between Revolution 9 and this, I guess this one is a slight bit better. But that might just be because it's shorter. And I caught that shameless plug for Apple, you aren't slick. 140, you know my name, look up the number. Oh no, I thought I escaped this song. Well, sadly, this song had to be included in the anthology. It's the exact same as the released one, except this one is even longer with an added verse. The only interesting thing I have to add is that this song reminded me that this was recorded during the Sgt. Pepper era instead of the Let It Be era. 139, Moonlight Bay. I didn't put this on the ranking because it wasn't a song, but before this was a 2-minute long segment of one of their shows that led into this song. I don't have much more to say. I don't know why it lasted so long. Anyway, this is barely a song either. It's just a small little jingle they did at one of their shows, and I can understand why this one wasn't released. 138, The Sheikh of Araby. The what? George is back with another song. Some of these lyrics are a little questionable, though. Well, at night, when you're asleep, into your tent I will creep. Calm down, George. The song is kinda mid. It's just generic early Beatles. I'm sorry, George. 137, Three Cool Cats. George gets to sing his first song of the anthology, to my knowledge. What a weird one to start out on. A story told using animal metaphors for each person. That's all. 136, Mr. Moonlight. Why did they have to interrupt John at the start? He sounded like he did the intro right to me. Anyway, sadly, Mr. Moonlight is one of my least favorite Beatles songs, so this one is put lower because of that. It doesn't even put a new spin on the song like some other anthology songs do. It sounds pretty similar to the final version. 135, Cayenne. This is the first of a few anthology songs that don't have any vocals, so it turns out Flying was not their first song without words. Anyway, for a song with no singing, there's not much to say, but the song is alright. 134, How Do You Do It? I don't have too much to say about this song. It's alright, though pretty formulaic, but I guess that can apply to a lot of early Beatles songs. 133, I'll Get You. Have you ever wanted to listen to a low-quality recording of a live performance of I'll Get You by the Beatles? Well, your wish has been granted. I don't have much to say, that's really all it is. 132, Leave My Kitten Alone. What? Just like that Cool Cat song from earlier, they use animal metaphors in place of people. Yet another weird concept of a song, but it's okay, I guess. Also, they say bulldog in this song. song? Is this foreshadowing? 131, yes it is. If I'm being honest, the original is one of my least favorite Beatles songs, so is this version better? It's about on par. I don't dislike it that much. I mean, this is the Beatles, they have no straight up bad songs, but this version is basically the same, but the beginning has only John singing as opposed to Paul and or George. 130, Old Brown Shoe. You might know how much I just love the original, so I'm so stoked to have the privilege of hearing it once more. Just kidding. The original is kind of mid, and this one is even less good somehow. The only difference between them are that this one has like one less instrument, and the vocals are a little more echoed. It's okay, I guess. 129, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. My favorite part of this one was John's Paul's Broken Glass jingle at the beginning.
Paul's broken at last, Paul's broken at last, he's broke today.
I think this song is very overrated. I don't know how so many people think it's the best on Help. And this sounds basically the same as the released version, but the chorus has less instrumentation. 128, In Spite of All the Danger. I can hear the Elvis influence clear as day in this song. This one's okay, and I can even hear the tape rolling in the background, so that's how you know they dug deep to find this. 127, That'll Be the Day. The audio quality on this song is kind of bad, but I guess that's inevitable considering what they had available. Side note, the first few songs on Anthology 1 all had this issue of bad audio quality, but I only talked about it in this review because it would get repetitive after a while. I'm pretty sure the chorus of this song is longer than the main part, but this song's alright. 126, Searchin'. If a Please Please Me era song sounded more Elvis inspired, this is what I would imagine it would sound like. It's a bit of a simple track. Also in the lyrics they say both Sergeant and Bulldog. 125, Lend Me Your Comb. A song about a comb. Well, considering how disgusting the Beatles' hair can get at some points, maybe the song made sense. 124, Boys. I don't know why a Please Please Me song is appearing so late in this album, but we'll roll with it. I'm pretty sure this was recorded after the original song, so I don't know why it sounds even more unfinished. There are some parts where Ringo is off key while singing, but I guess they aren't that often. This one's okay. 123, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby live. This one is pulled straight from their iconic Shea Stadium performance. Judging by how these crowds were acting, that explains why they stopped touring. The sound mixing is super bad here. You can barely hear George at all. The final mix is okay, and so is this one. 122, Cry for a Shadow. Another song with no vocals. I don't know why though, because this beat could have easily been sung over, but as it is, I enjoy this one. 121, My Bonnie. This one strangely begins with an interview clip. Anyway, this one's audio quality is actually pretty good, and this has one of the most 1950s intro this band has ever sung. The main part of the song has some fun energy. 120, All My Loving. This is like a higher pitched variation of the studio version, with occasional screaming from the crowd in the background. All My Loving is the most famous song from With the Beatles, and I don't think it's as good as most people say it is, but it's an okay track. 119, One After 909. Here's the song that was remade for the Let It Be album. Yeah, that version is better, of course, but this one's alright. It sounds like how you would expect this to sound like for early Beatles, just as the Let It Be version sounds like how you'd imagine this to sound from that era. 118, That Means a Lot. I don't know why this song has so much echo. Was it recorded live or something? This song is very simple, especially by this point in their careers, but it's worth it to hear Paul say suicide, which was unexpected. 117, Tomorrow Never Knows. Alright, here I unveil my hottest of hot takes. I do not enjoy Tomorrow Never Knows that much. I know. I agree with my rating of it from the original ranking. I've never understood the hype around it. It sounds like a bunch of random noise to me. This version is slightly better, I guess, but it's still just okay. It sounds less ahead of its time, but sounds more like an actual song compared to the released track. 116, Yesterday, Anthology 2 Edition. The famous song, but with a few more guitar chords. How interesting. It makes the song sound more folkier, if that makes sense. But since this song is only acoustics without any extra instruments, it takes away the emotional element present in the final version, but this one is still interesting. 115, Yesterday Live. Just the song again, but the orchestra is present this time, so it's a little better. But again, the crowd needs to calm down. Also, I promise I enjoy the original song, even though I put both of these kinda low. It's just the released version is much better. 114, No Reply. If No Reply came from Please Please Me, this is probably what it would sound like. It feels weird for a Beatles song to sound this 50s by the Beatles for Sale era, but I guess that explains why they redid this one to be fit for the album. John is absolutely cracking up here though.
To see your
113, rock and roll music live. How strange that they were still performing Beatles for Sale songs in the Revolver era. Another reason why they stopped touring. Anyway, I dig the original edition, but this one is more limited since it's performed live, so it has less instruments that add an extra kick to it. And also a verse or two are cut out of this one. 112, I'll Be Back. The original, but more of a ballad. This one feels more like a love song than an album closer as the final product sounds. 111, I Feel Fine live. For a live performance, this one can't have any crazy instrumentation or anything, but for what it is, it's alright. I don't really have any strong feelings about the original, and the same applies for this one. 110, Money, That's What I Want. One of the better tracks from With the Beatles. Here is the song, except the Beatles are too close to their mics. 109, Hallelujah, I Love Her So. The sound mixing is so bad on this one. The instruments are louder than the singing, but I actually enjoyed this one. It could do with a remaster or something, but I enjoyed this one's flow. 108, You'll Be Mine. This might be the first instance of Paul's Little Richard voice. Anyway, this could do with a remaster, but for what it is, I enjoyed it. 107, From Me to You, an early version of the song from one of their performances. It doesn't sound that much different from the released version, to be honest. 106, Shout. This does not sound like a Beatles song. I think all of the Beatles contribute to the vocals here, which is nice. I like the intro a lot, but sadly it only lasts around 20 seconds before it stops. As you would guess from that title, this song is very loud, but it was cool hearing something different for once. 105, 12-bar original. Another song with no words. They could have easily made a song over this beat, so I don't know why they didn't. For a track without lyrics, it's not bad. 104, Roll Over Beethoven. The original, but a lot faster. I've never heard George sing this quickly before. The original is better, but this slight twist on it is welcome. 103, If You've Got Trouble. What a surprise, an unreleased track with Ringo as the main singer. This would have fit better on With the Beatles or something. This isn't very fitting for Help era, but I liked it, mainly because Ringo has returned. 102, Long Tall Sally. This song is as rock and roll as the Beatles can get. Anyway, imagine a less polished version of the studio mix, and that's what this sounds like. 101, She's a Woman live. The final early Beatles song in the anthology. Paul's voice has less Little Richard influence in it compared to the released song. Fair enough, I guess. He'll probably strain his voice pretty quickly if he did that every performance. The sound mixing is bad, of course, since this is a live performance, but this is an interesting little clip from one of their shows. 100, Hello Little Girl. Oh no, this might be even worse than Little Child. Yeah, this song's concept is a little creepy by today's standards, but does the rest of the song hold up? It's not bad, just ignore those weird lyrics. 99, Cry Baby Cry. I swear that intro sounds just like A Day in the Life's intro. Speaking of, I think this version took some inspiration from that song, because this one includes a beat switch which isn't present in the final version, if I remember correctly. I always thought the released mix was a little boring and not very notable, and this version is a bit of the same, but still not bad. 98, Twist and Shout live. The song we all know and love, live. I think I heard this was the Beatles song they played the most live, which must have been terrible for John's vocal cords. I think the original is a pinch overrated, but I still enjoy this one. 97, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Arguably the most iconic early Beatles song. I think this one's a little overrated, of course, because I think there are better early Beatles songs, but I like this version, especially the outro. 96, A Hard Day's Night. Sounds just like the studio mix, but the vocals have more echo this time. The original is, of course, my favorite on the album, so I additionally liked this one. Paul's verse in this one is much more chill, and even has some extra lyrics. There are some weird moments in here, though. At one point, Paul just gives up and improvises his verse, so clearly this one wasn't finished yet. 95, Ain't She Sweet Anthology 1 version. I heard this song on a Beatles TikTok once, so this is one of the few songs on the anthology I've heard before doing this ranking. John does all the vocals on this one. This would fit right in with Please Please Me, so I'm surprised this went unreleased. 94, You Know What to Do. George is back with an original song. This one doesn't sound like any Beatles song, so I guess that explains why it wasn't released. I haven't yet decided if I find this one boring or if I enjoy it, but right now, I like it. 93, You Can't Do That. This song is incredibly clear audio for the 1960s. The audio is likely remastered, but still, it's impressive, mainly in the very beginning. I always thought this was one of the most underrated songs on A Hard Day's Night, and I still stand by that. 92, Norwegian Wood. The first later Beatles song on the anthology, thank the Lord. This one is the original in a completely different key, which sounds as strange as you can guess. And in the chorus, Paul is way more noticeable than John, which is an issue they fixed in the final version, luckily. 91, Strawberry Field Forever demo. Yeah, you heard that right. This is an exception to the demo rule. This one lasts long enough to be lifted from being disqualified. This early variant of one of the band's tracks sounds nothing like the final version at all, which explains why it's so low on here. I guess that explains why it took them so long to make it. This one is okay. 90, Besame Mucho. I can't believe it. This was the song from the Let It Be movie. I was always confused by that scene until I discovered that this song exists. The Beatles singing singing in Spanish is an interesting idea, though the song is mostly in English, to be fair. 89, Across the Universe. To end off Anthology 2, here's a less complex version of the single edition of Across the Universe. I guess the album mix was made later on. I really like the single version because it had such a sad sound, but this one is missing a lot of the features that made that one so emotional, so it ends up just being alright. 88, The Fool on the Hill. How weird that the demo sounds more like the final version than this does. This beat is completely different and sounds nothing like the released mix, outside of maybe the chorus. Anyway, it's okay. I'll go into a little more detail on my thoughts right now, actually. 87, The Fool on the Hill demo. This is another exception to the demo rule. This version only has the piano for an instrument. I'm not that big of a fan of the original because I think it's a little boring, and I kind of think the same for this one. I do enjoy Paul's improv during the bridge, to give it some credit. 86, All Things Must Pass. One of George's rejected songs that the Beatles never released. Maybe he should release this song for a solo career. Better yet, maybe he should name an album after it. Anyway, I sadly haven't gotten to listen to the actual finished mix of this song yet, but I thought this one was alright, though it could do with some more instruments. 85, I Wanna Be Your Man. Ringo has his first song of the anthology. The chorus has less bass than the finished song, and this one sounds more folkier, if that's even a word. Side note, just take a look at these lyrics. I mean, they're just so creative. 84, Please Please Me. An early version of the iconic track. I honestly might like this one more than the released version, to be honest. The harmonica, or whatever instrument was used in the released mix, is replaced with a less annoying one here. I like it. 83, Piggies. I always thought the final version of Piggies didn't really sound like a song George would make, but here you can kind of tell he made it. There's more Indian influence this time around. Also, the bacon line in the released track flows much better than the pork chops line does in this version, if I'm being honest. 82, Rocky Raccoon. The same as the final mix, but the chorus is more simple, and also Paul messes up a lyric at the 2:40 mark. I always thought the released song had overly violent lyrics, and I still agree here. I still enjoy both of these songs, but I enjoy a lot of their other songs more. 81, Julia. Even with such a peaceful song, John still can resist cracking up near the end. This is the final White Album era song in the anthology, and it sounds pretty much like the released one does, just with a bit different vocals this time. 80, Teddy Boy. I liked Paul giggling like a little girl at the 45-second mark.
Taking good care of you.
This might be the most basic guitar I've ever heard from a Beatles song, but this one's okay. The lyrics leave a lot to be desired, but I guess for a song they made on a whim while recording other stuff, this isn't too bad. 79, Strawberry Fields Forever, Take 1. This one sounds more like the final mix than the demo did, at least. Still sounds very different, though. You can tell this one was made in the 60s, unlike the released one, which sounds timeless. I do enjoy the beach sound on this variation, which causes it to have a much happier tone compared to the released track. 78, Ain't She Sweet, Anthology 3 Edition. Wow, how interesting. This is a scrapped song of theirs from their early days, but both this and the original song are both on the anthology. Neither sound much alike, but both aren't that far off in quality. I'd say this one is a little better, probably because the production is an improvement. 77, Within You Without You, Instrumental. I was waiting for the singing to begin in this song before reading the title again and realizing that this is just the instrumental. It's a pretty cool instrumental, but that's about it. 76, Sexy Sadie. The final edition, but with a more laid-back beat. I don't have much to say about either version. I think they are both just alright. 75, Glass Onion Demo. I guess the Beatles enjoyed their acoustic demos during this era. Just imagine what an unplugged version of Glass Onion would sound like, and here you go. 74, Can't Buy Me Love. Unlike a lot of these anthology songs where it's just a slight spin on one of their release tracks, this one sounds completely different compared to the studio mix. This one, of course, doesn't sound as good, but it's interesting how much they rewrote this one for it to be ready to release. 73, Polythene Pam. John sounds similar to George in this one. Anyway, just like me and Mr. Mustard, this one is kind of an acoustic take on the final mix, but it's weird they still went with this title since they had a name change in the last track. Side note, what sucks about ranking these in order is that every song is put out of chronological order, so a lot of what I'm saying won't make sense until the Me and Mr. Mustard review plays, but by then you'll see what I mean. 72, Happiness is a Worm Gun. The released mix, but without the beat switches. This doesn't really sound like the final song does, though, since it's only one part of the song instead of the entire piece. I didn't really like the beat switches in the final mix because I thought they were out of place, so I guess it's nice to not have any. 71, Ticket to Ride Live. The crowd has to calm down, they scream after Paul says anything. This is the song that all of us know, but it has more guitar and less percussion. And the outro is not as good, but I guess that's where all the percussion instruments were hiding. 70, It's Only Love. I actually like this one. I probably prefer the final version, but this one has more string instruments, so it gives it a more bombastic sound. It sounds nice. 69, Till There Was You Live. The singing in this is the same as the original, but the instrumental uses different, instruments. As always, enjoyed the original, so enjoyed this one too. 68, Your Mother Should Know, the Beatles mixed with Weird Al. I hope you like accordions and drums because those are practically the only instruments here outside of a little bit of piano. An accordion really does not work with this song. This mix made me realize how much the backing vocals added to the sound of the final song. 67, Me and Mr. Mustard. If the released song had an unplugged version, this would be it. Interestingly, they changed Pam's name to Shelley this time around. Anyway, it's just the song we all know and love, but with acoustic guitars instead of other instruments. 66, I Saw Her Standing There. Just the released track, but less polished. Since I enjoy the original song, I also enjoy this, so I guess it served its purpose. 65, I Will. My Spotify was bugging out at the 40-second mark, so I thought the song was broken, but nope. Anyway, the finished track is probably the most forgettable song on the White Album for me, but it's an okay song. Luckily, the released mix already uses mostly acoustics, so this version is largely the same. 64, Not Guilty. I think this is one of George's unreleased tracks, so that's cool. This doesn't really feel like a Beatles song like a lot of these unreleased songs, so I guess that explains why this wasn't put out. It's an alright song. I enjoy the guitar on it, which was a staple of Beatles songs during this time. 63, You Really Got a Hold on Me. I enjoy that initial guitar strum as an intro. I'm divided on it if I enjoy this one slightly more, slightly less than the original, but regardless, it's not bad. 62, Love Me Do. Here we are, the first song in the anthology that was actually released later on rather than being scrapped. This is exactly what you would think it is, an early version of Love Me Do. Of course, it's slightly worse than the released version, but still good. 61, I'm So Tired. In this take on the song, it sounds around the same, but the beat switch doesn't hit as hard as the final version. It's a welcome change, though I do prefer the released mix a bit more. 60, Mother Nature's Son. This sounds pretty much the same as the final product does. In fact, this might be one of the most accurate songs compared to its final version out of any anthology song. All I noticed that was changed is that either the sitar was changed out or there was an extra string instrument added in the final version. Both songs are on par with each other. 59, Something. The released version if it was on Rubber Soul. The instruments in the final version suit it more in my opinion. This version sounds a bit more emotional with the instruments they chose, but not by that much. But then they introduced the guitar, which especially doesn't fit with this song. It's still pretty good though, since the original is so great, but the released mix is much better. 58, She Loves You Live. The original song, but live, and in lower quality. This is basically the exact same as the original actually, but I enjoyed the original, so this one gets some grace. 57, Honey Pie. I guess this isn't really an acoustic take on the final song considering the released mix was kind of unplugged already. Anyway, this one is okay. It's too short to really leave an impact though. 56, Two of Us. Alright, here's where I talk about the injustice I gave Two of Us in the last ranking. Number 203? It would be like 103 now. I might not be the biggest Two of Us fan, but it's not that bad. Anyway, this version is okay. It sounds about the same as the original, but with a few lyric changes. 55, Mailman Bring Me No More Blues. Presumably another early song that they never got to record until the Let It Be sessions. Sounds about how you would expect a later Beatles take on an early Beatles song. It has a very laid-back sound, though it's a little short. 54, Because. This is interesting. There have been Beatles songs without words, but what about one without an instrumental? Well, here you go. Basically just the song Because, but with no production. It's okay, but as someone who really likes production in music, an instrumental would obviously be nice, but for a song with no beat, it's pretty good. 53, A Beginning. I'm pretty sure this one is an interlude, meaning it should theoretically not count, but I'm counting it anyway. I guess they ran out of leftover songs John recorded before he passed, so this is the opener to Anthology 3. This doesn't sound like a Beatles song at all, but I liked it. 52, Why Don't We Do It in the Road? The intro caught me so off guard with the gentle vocals before Paul's Little Richard voice finally kicked in. As most anthology songs go, the many instruments in the background of the final song aren't present here, so it's basically only guitar and the occasional sitar here and there. The released song is a guilty pleasure of mine on the White Album, but I don't like this one quite as much. 51, I'm Only Sleeping. Like a lot of these Revolver era anthology songs, this sounds like a less ahead of its time version of the final song. I do enjoy the backing vocals by Paul, even though I think they were in the original too, and I liked the effects on John's voice in the released variant, but sadly they aren't present here. 50, Octopus's Garden. Ringo sounds pretty tired here, just like me right now. Somebody's gotta wake him up. Anyway, this song's alright. There are fewer instruments and no backing vocals, just like most anthology songs. It feels weird hearing the song without the iconic keyboard that's a staple of the final version. That sure was superb, Ringo. Keep in mind that I'm listening to all of these with a free trial of Spotify Premium. Imagine if I didn't have that, then I'd have to listen to an ad in between every song. I'd go insane. 49, I'm Down. Want the original without the backing vocals? Here you go. That's all I really need to say. I enjoy the original, so even though this is not as good, I still dig it. Also, nice American accent accent in the intro, Paul.
Oh, they're wearing wings. Hey, they didn't realize they're wearing wings.
48, Step Inside Love / Los Paranoias. I like the Mexican / Spanish influence of this song. One issue I have is that it's not very fitting as a Beatles song. It would fit better as a solo Paul McCartney song. Well, if you can tell by that title, this actually contains 2 songs in one. Everything I just said could kind of apply to both, but Los Paranoias is the less notable of the two in my opinion. 47, I'm looking through you. This sounds completely different from the released version. The final mix is a bit chaotic with all of its instruments, but this one takes a more relaxed approach. I do appreciate that, but this version does sound more outdated than the released song, which sounded ahead of its time. 46, And I Love Her. The original with a more bombastic beat. I enjoy all the different instruments. I probably like this more than the studio version, to be honest. I always thought the studio mix was too basic, so this fixes that issue. To be fair, the beat doesn't fit the song super well, but I can look past that. 45, Eleanor Rigby Instrumental. As you could guess from that title, there are no lyrics to this song. This is a very good instrumental though, so that's great, but there's not much else to note here. For an instrumental only song, this is probably the best they could do. 44, Real Love. To begin the second anthology, here's one of 2 quote-unquote new Beatles songs. I enjoy the other new song more, but I also really enjoy this one. John's voice sounds way too high-pitched, but that was probably due to what little audio they had to work with. This one feels like it could have been one of the Beatles' own songs, so I'll give them that. 43, Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Here's another bad take from my original ranking I have to fix. Why in God's name did I put this at number 3? That's above songs like A Day in the Life and The Long and Winding Road, mind you. Anyway, it's weird hearing this song without backing vocals and the iconic hammer clanks. It's alright. 42, Help Live. This one has one missing instrument compared to the original, and I can't put my finger on which one it was. Side note, to further prove that I disagree with my original ranking, I put this song at number 5 on my last list. Why? But still, I like the studio version, so I like this too. 41, Kansas City. To end off Anthology 1, we have a song about the greatest major city ever. The city of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, the greatest football team ever. Anyway, the song's alright. It sounds almost exactly like the original, but since I liked the original, that's a good thing. 40, Good Night. If the released mix was from the Magical Mystery Tour era, this is what it would sound like. Well, I guess you could argue it kind of already was during that era, but I digress. This one doesn't have that beautiful orchestra sound the final track does, but I do enjoy the simple sound of it. 39, For You Blue. Did you know that the original song went number 1 in the US? That's kind of surprising for one of George's songs.
Well, unless you Here Comes the Sun, then you're an exception, I guess.
Anyway, this song sounds the same, except has less plinking instruments, if that makes any sense. I really don't have that much to say. The anthology was not meant to be ranked. 38, Don't Pass Me By. This sounds pretty much the same as the final version does. Outside of some drum segments that were later cut, this is basically already complete. I enjoy that Ringo got to have his first Beatles song written by him on the White Album. I think both this and the released track are alright. 37, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I think this is the version of the song used in the official music video, if I'm not mistaken, so that's nice. I think this edition is near the quality of the final mix. They both take a pretty different approach at being emotional, with this one having more acoustics and less instruments. I think the final track is a bit overrated, but I still enjoy it a lot. And same here. 36, This Boy. The original is probably my favorite from Past Masters Volume 1, and though this isn't as good as the studio version, it's not far off. I did notice an incredibly minor lyric change though. When they say, this boy would be happy, here it's changed to this boy could be happy for some reason. I guess it makes sense why they changed that though. Would be happy sounds better. 35, 8 Days a Week. This sounds like a beta version of the original, which I guess it is, but I digress. Except they say 8 days a week a little differently this time, I noticed.
8 days a week, 8 days a week.
I like this version a lot more than the original. The original sounded kind of basic to me, and this sounds a lot more fun. 34, Like Dreamers Do. With all the repeating words, this feels like it might have been an inspiration to Ask Me Why later on. Anyway, want more Elvis-inspired Beatles music? Well, you're in luck. That isn't a bad thing, though. I liked this one. 33, Rip It Up / Shake, Rattle, and Roll / Blue Suede Shoes. Ooh, a medley. Watch out, Abbey Road. Is this as good as that medley was? No, but this is still pretty fun. Considering the rock and roll sound of these, I'm guessing these could have been songs they wrote from their early days that they just never got to record. Also, I swear I didn't hear the Rip It Up segment at all, and I don't even think it was in the medley. 32, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. I think a slow version of this song works pretty well. I wish this was a piano-only cover or something, but I'll take this regardless. This funky take on the song sounds nice, though the final mix is a slight bit better. 31, Glass Onion, Take 33. This is better than the other anthology mix at least, mainly because it sounds much more like the final version, to be fair. Outside Outside of a few missing instruments, this isn't too far off from the final version, but it does have this weird outro that was thankfully cut later on. 30, Junk. This one is pretty interesting. This one was later turned into a solo Paul McCartney song on his debut album. I enjoy the emotional sound of this one, but like a lot of these Anthology 3 songs, there's basically only acoustics, which admittedly might have increased the sad tone, but it could do with more instruments. As is, it's still great though. 29, Helter Skelter. This is how I imagine Helter Skelter would sound if John wrote it. Like a lot of these Anthology mixes, it sounds like the final version if it was less ahead of its time. This one sounds more folky rather than heavy metal. I still dig it though. 28, I Me Mine. If you've ever wanted the original song to be a minute shorter, here it is. This is one of the most similar songs compared to the final version out of any song in the Anthology. I did not catch one thing different in this version than the original mix outside of the fact that this is a little shorter. I enjoyed the original, of course, so I guess it was nice to hear it again. 27, Lady Madonna. Wow, does it feel weird listening to this song without a lot of the drums, except for Paul's vocals, some small drums, and that iconic main beat. Everything else is basically gone here. This feels weird to listen to, but since the song is already pretty good, I found this alright. 26, Andrew Bird Can Sing. This version sounds pretty ahead of its time. If the instrumental sounded a little clearer, this could have fit right in as a pop song from the 90s. Anyway, Paul couldn't stop cracking up during the recording apparently, but I liked this spin on this song, even though it barely sounds like the final version.
Tell me that you've got everything you want.
25, Let It Be, the iconic song, but with less Phil Spector and Billy Preston, and some vocal and instrumental changes. I get why the final mix is so popular, but I feel like the Beatles have better songs than it, so I find it kind of weird when people say it's their best song. I do think that was rather grand, though. 24, Oh Darling. This version just starts for some reason. Also, John was only a backing vocal in the released mix, but here he's a lead singer along with Paul, and no Little Richard voice from Paul this time. He sounds more like Kermit here. Even though his performance here isn't nearly as impressive as the final version, I still dig this one. Also, I can't believe John has a little celebration song over realizing he can now marry Yoko. It's so stupid. 23, Obla Di, Obla Da. I'm sure if this is how the final mix sounded, the other Beatles would have enjoyed it a lot more. This doesn't really feel like a Beatles song, but it's an interesting take on the released edition, though they don't really sound similar at all. I like the final song a little more, but I still dig this one. 22, Come Together. The beat here is about the same as the final version, but the vocals are completely different. John must have been super hyped to record this one because he sounds like he's jumping with enthusiasm singing the song. Well, except the chorus, which gets a little whisper from him. His singing doesn't really fit very well, so I'm glad they fixed it for the final mix. 21, Come and Get It. Here's an unreleased song from Paul. I enjoy the cool beat here. I can tell that a few parts of the beat sound exactly like the Hey Bulldog intro, though. I don't think this would have fit on either Let It Be or Abbey Road, so that might explain why this ended up being scrapped. 20, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band Reprise. The released mix, but only Paul this time. Poor lonely Paul. I think this song is overhated, and I don't know why people always say it's the worst on Sgt. Pepper's, because I enjoy it. 19, Got to Get You Into My Life. The released track, but less enthusiastic. The original's best quality was how upbeat it was, but that doesn't mean this one is bad. I still enjoy it a lot, of course. It sounds like a song that would play at a baseball game, which is helped by its heavy use of the keyboard. 18, Blackbird. The guitar on this one is the same as the released track, but Paul's singing has less voice effects on it. Of course, I enjoyed the original, so I enjoy this one too. I mean, who doesn't? 17, I'm the Walrus. Something interesting about this mix is that even though the instrumental is incomplete and the backing vocals haven't been added, the vocal effects on John's singing are still there. This does cause the song to sound incredibly confusing though, since the instrumental sounds so simple compared to the vocals, but just like the final version, I like it. 16, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. This doesn't sound too far off from the official release. It has less vocal effects and instruments, especially electric ones, but largely isn't much different. 15, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. If the release track was a sea shanty, this is what I imagine it would sound like. Doesn't sound that off from the final version, it just has less production and a more authentic sound. 14, Hello Goodbye. Hope you love bass because there's a lot of it here, and barely any instruments besides that, but that's a given by this point in the anthology. There actually is some backing vocals this time around, which is kind of surprising for an anthology song. Even though the lyrics leave a lot to be desired, I like this song just like the final edition. 13, Get Back. This sounds similar to the rooftop performance of the original. Anyway, a lot of Billy Preston's instruments aren't here, which makes it sound a bit more basic. Since the finished version is so good, I enjoyed this one too. 12, Penny Lane. Here the song is largely intact compared to the released mix, but Paul's vocals outside the chorus are more raw and have less effects. The bridge of the song sounds different, an outro is included, and some instruments aren't present. I enjoy both the original version and this one. 11, The Long and Winding Road. The version of the song made before Phil Spector got to produce it. Very hot take. I actually enjoyed Spector's production on Let It Be. I know a lot of people, including Paul himself, dislike it, but I feel like the orchestral addition to this song made it better. To me, it feels too basic without it. I still like this song, granted, but the Let It Be version is better. 10. Dig a Pony. The original song is a little guilty pleasure of mine, so I enjoy this one too, though the lyrics are kind of bad. I like the vibe of it well enough to save it. The production isn't too far off from the released version, which is great. The only changes are a few instruments being gone and some lyrics being in different places. 9. The End. The final song in the entirety of the anthology. And does it work as a great finale? Yes, it does. It's the classic song we all know and love, and the final note even has some extra orchestra added to it. One weird thing is that the actual song is only half of the runtime. The second half is just leading up to one single note, then it fades away. Still, an amazing ending. 8. I've Got a Feeling. The iconic song, but with less Billy Preston. I guess he really was like a fifth Beatle during this period. Anyway, I did the original song in Injustice in my last ranking, so I'm here to say that this song is probably top 50 Beatles now. Some of the upbeat energy of the released mix isn't present here, but I still dig it. 7. Hey Jude. Considering how many times they've had to re-record this song, I'm surprised this is the only Hey Jude variant in the anthology. The final mix is, of course, one of the best songs ever, so does this one live up? I mean, kind of, I guess. Because this is the anthology, there are a lot of instruments and voice effects that weren't added until later, so it feels a bit empty, but it's still pretty good. The chant at the end only being Paul is a bit awkward, though. Again, poor lonely Paul. 6. Only a Northern Song. I enjoy this one more than the final mix. I think the released version went overboard with all the instruments, so I enjoy that this one uses basically only the keyboard and drums. I also think George sounds kind of bored in the released mix, but this song has him sounding more enthusiastic. 5. Good Morning, Good Morning. Hey, I actually like this song more than the released track too. The repetitive chorus this time around is missing. In fact, there's no chorus at all here. The animal noises in the outro are gone, and the beat is more groovy. Why couldn't the final version have been like this? 4. A Day in the Life, of course. Because the final song is so complex, there are some interesting changes made here. Though this sounds roughly like the released version, less instruments are included, the vocals on Paul and John are less clear, where one of the best parts of the song is, it's replaced by this extremely echoed segment where they count up to 23, and worst of all, the iconic final note is missing. Also at the 3:20 mark, Paul says this.
Everybody's smoking, I went into a dream. Oh shit.
I know all this sounds negative, but the original is fantastic, so this one is good for what it is. 3. Taxman. It's the exact same as the released version. I'm not kidding. Well, outside of 3 things that were changed later on for the better. 1. The song is longer in the final version. 2. Random instrument noises at some parts were removed. And 3. At the Don't Ask Me What I Want It For part, they replaced this weird rapid-firing lyric segment with the iconic Haha Mr. Wilson and Mr. Heath lines. This being so similar to the original isn't a bad thing. It was high up on my initial list, so this will go high up on this list too. 2. Strawberry Fields Forever, Take 7. This one sounds nearly identical to the final version, but here it has more pop influence in it. Some verses are added in, some of the singing is off a little, and the outro, instead of being a mashup of instruments, is basically only drums. The original is one of the greatest songs of all time, but this early version of course has some issues. It's still great though, so it ranks high up. And finally, number 1, Free as a Bird. Yes, the first song of the anthology ends up being the highest on the list. I love the way Paul and George are integrated to fit into this song. The cleaning up on John's vocals is very noticeable, but technology for that kind of thing wasn't the best at this time, so I'll give it a pass. The song sounds very sad, and with great production and great singing, this song ranks at the number 1 spot. And there we have it. I've officially listened to every Beatles song ever. I'll never have to listen to another brand new Beatles song again. Oh, there's some alternative versions of some songs in the deluxe versions of some of their albums. And there are still all 4 of their solo careers. And there are more Lost Beatles songs never released and never put into the anthology. Who cares about those? I'm not listening to anything new right now. Now, how was the anthology experience? Like I said in one of those reviews, these albums were not really meant to be ranked. Only around 30% of these songs were actual new material, and the other 70% were just beta versions of the band's pre-existing songs. Most of these songs are only really worth your time if you're an extremely dedicated Beatles fan, or you want to learn more about the band's history. Notice how none of these songs were an S tier? That's why. The songs here, even the best ones, aren't up to match with most most of the Beatles' classic discography. To be fair, that's not what these albums set out to do. They set out to be a record of the Beatles' songwriting sessions, and they did a very good job at that, to give credit where it's due. The new songs were pretty interesting, to be fair, but most of them were cut from being released for a reason, whether it was them not being that great or them not sounding like a Beatles song. Basically, all of the pre-existing songs were worse than their final versions. Honestly, that's actually a good thing since it means the Beatles improved on their songs after refining them, but it makes actually listening to the anthology very boring. If I were to name every song where the anthology version was better, it would be Good Morning, Only a Northern Song, And I Love Her, Please Please Me,
Tomorrow Never Knows.
and 8 Days a Week. If you're wondering where these songs would go on the original rankings, that would take too long for me to decide, but What's the New Mary Jane would go second to last, Real Love would be 133rd, and Free as a Bird would be 22nd. If I ranked the anthology albums, they got better as they went on, obviously since the Beatles songwriting improved. So the first one is the worst, the second one is in the middle, and the third one is the best. But now, I'm finally finished. For real this time, I don't think I'll do another ranking for a hot minute. I'll just be chilling like a villain. So until then, I guess I'll see you guys next time.